don't know.
quality on the videos.
I don't know if I can. With their mic.
That one seemed okay. You were okay on that side. You were okay, Jerome over here was like.
Yeah. Well, and part of that might be that because it's a 9-member board, you know, there's sharing of.
The mics. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Well, one of the complaints was people couldn't see who was talking with the podium over there.
Dryer funeral.
So should that be lined up with the door in the center and the president?
That's where the other one was. No, the other one was offset too.
Yeah, that was over. Yeah.
Shucks. I like him.
He was good.
Good guy.
Such a nice guy.
I knew nothing
Yeah.
about him.
Dryer funeral home.
I just redid their house.
Really?
Yeah. I still have a debt to do.
I talked to him, but not about the meeting.
Well, you're going to have to appoint somebody new to HDC.
I would think so, yes.
I said you're going to have to appoint somebody new to HDC.
See,
They'll just
Lori Olson's bad guy? Did you see Lori Olson's
Yeah.
bad guy?
And she acknowledged it, yeah, that could be an issue.
just painted her house. Or did you already appoint somebody when I wasn't here?
I'm sorry?
I was talking to Ryan. Did you already appoint somebody when I wasn't here? Wow, it got real quiet. I don't like that.
Oh, yeah.
I can't see the clock either.
Yes.
The clock does it, so it does.
We need one with hands on it. Not that digital
I
clock.
need
Same. Really bad. Yeah.
Hi, Mike. Good, how are you?
Looks like we fixed this. Yeah. That Richard broke last time. He was getting violent.
My wife's going to be one.
I
Gonna be one this year, so
think it looks
we like that.
crooked though. Oh, maybe not. Looks like they're all like that. Yeah, they kind of offset. You can just spin it. I think that's what he did. And then just calm down, dude.
Laid back. Looks at things very open-minded.
Okay.
He came over to my house the other day. He said, "Shit, I'm not allowed to." I'm like,
I think so too.
Yeah. Good guy.
I did mine just one. I did have MC11. I was out there melting for the past 2.5 weeks. Oh, it sucked.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6 o'clock, so I will call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Harrington.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Musgrave. Here. Brandon.
Here.
Kinnaman. Kyer.
Here.
Delaney.
Here, we have a quorum, and Mr. Kinnaman has communicated with us, and he is on his way. Consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the Village Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda. What is the pleasure of council?
I'll make the motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Musgrave, support by Perkins to approve the consent agenda as presented. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman. Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Informational meeting, Downtown Development Authority. Mr. Klemp.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here this evening. Tonight is just a quick informational presentation that the DDA needs to do twice a year to fulfill our PA 57 requirements. I do one at our DDA meeting, and then I do one here for the council as well. And it's basically just an update for each of our committees, what we accomplished in the past year, what we're looking forward to do in the coming year. And I want to start by just saying that the work of the DDA, for the most part, outside of me really, is all done as a volunteer organization. From committee members to events that go on to the actual board members, they're volunteers. And in my time as a volunteer for the DDA and now as a director, I've got to work with some very awesome people that have made these things happen. And so I just wanted to point that out because a lot of times people don't realize that the DDA at the core is a volunteer organization. And this year I put out some stats just to kind of show from the time that about the time that we joined the Main Street organization. So the DDA started earlier than this, but we started the Main Street organization around 2000 and started taking stats around 2003. And just kind of looking at some of the things that the DDA accomplished with about $18 million that we've seen invested in public investment within the DDA district. We've had about 100 new construction projects, about over 100 new housing projects. We've had about 400 special events, about $150,000 spent on advertising, about $350,000 spent on special events, about 80,000 volunteer hours that have taken place, and about 82 public improvement projects that were done in the DDA. And we've seen from 2003, the annual budget of the DDA go from about 84,000 to this coming year, 337,000, over 337,000. And the public investment in 2003 going from 7,500 to almost 700,000. And then the number of volunteer hours in a year in 2003 were about 400 to this year's over 600 volunteer hours. And so it's just kind of neat to see how the DDA has grown and the improvements and things that they have done and put into that area. And so to start, I'd just like to say some of the accomplishments that each of the committees worked on this year, and it's just kind of a summary of those things. But with our design committee, we replanted the flower beds in the downtown. We completely overhauled the beds at Civic and First Street. Hopefully you noticed that. We added some new trees in the downtown and new tree grates, as well as updated the sidewalk there in that area. We added new Christmas lights to the downtown. Received a $50,000 grant to update our social district, as well as Ganshaw Park, and continue to do updates within Battle Alley and adding more flower pots in the downtown as well. With our promotions committee, we planned and managed and advertised 5 large DDA events in the downtown. We participated in many giveaways, promotions, gift cards that went directly back to our businesses in the DDA. We advertised our whole district through local papers, through social media, and continue to update our website as a tourism website that promotes Holly and our events for anyone to come and take a part, whether it's to live, work, or play here in the area, and promoted Holly through other Michigan outlets like Visit Detroit, Visit Oakland County, and the Pure Michigan website as well. Our organization committee reworked our volunteer recruitment process. We had volunteer for not just the DDA events, but we also helped other organizations with their volunteer needs as well. We recruited 23 new volunteers this year, worked on several grants, one major one with Oakland County for our train depot. And we made headway in our market research that we're working on with a completed survey and a new vision statement. We started a partnership with our schools and with Michigan Works to attract student interns into our businesses, so interns from Holly High School to do business, help with the businesses here in our downtown, and held a volunteer thank you dinner as well. Our Economic Vitality Committee helped administrate grants for the businesses, both through Oakland County as well as opportunities for free training. We worked with Chief Watson and the Holly Chamber of Commerce to welcome our new businesses that came in. We offered specifically a Holly DDA facade grants to our businesses that came from the DDA. We provided free opportunity to be a part of our Oakland County e-commerce site. We developed an online portal for buildings that are for sale or for rent in our Main Street website. And we worked on a building and building owner list and started building those relationships, making those relationships better with the DDA. We've helped Andy's Place apply for grants to help with their restoration and helped connect potential new business to building owners that are in our district. And so this coming year, it's kind of some of the same things, but also some difference with the design committee. This year we plan to move forward with our depot move and restoration. And I always tell everybody I hate saying that out loud because whenever you do, that's when things don't happen. But we're moving forward with that. And we're waiting on a grant through Oakland County. And when we receive that grant, we will have raised close to $900,000 to go towards the depot move and restoration. Most of that was done through grants. Some of that was done through fundraising, but mostly through grants that we wrote. We've already got started on repainting the light poles in downtown and midtown, as well as the signs, repainting the signs and continuing with the updates, also as well with our garbage cans and getting those reworked. We'll continue to work on the planners in the district and keeping them updated and healthy, as well as adding a garden adoption program where people can help in keeping them nice and clean, as well as replacing some of the trees in the downtown that have died, and done some updates in Ganshaw Park, and continue to add flower pots as well as Christmas decorations in the north end of town and in Midtown. And the Economic Vitality Committee is planning on working on an adaptive use plans for a couple of our empty buildings and what could be potential empty buildings in the future in our district. We're continuing to work with the businesses on grants both from Oakland County and through the Holly DDA itself. We're also working on a retention plan to work alongside with building owners and renters that they bring in to help retain them for longer periods. With our promotions committee, we will continue to work with entities inside and outside of Holly to promote Holly, for people to come here to live, work, and play. We'll continue to update our website to reflect that tourism type of site to draw people to our town for many different various reasons, as well as having brochures made up for all of our area rest areas, and also on social media. Our organization committee, we're going to continue to work on our volunteer recruitment because that's always a need. and also volunteer recognition, work with area groups to bring people into Holly, continue to work with our market analysis and how it can benefit each of our committees and the DDA as a whole, and do a revision of our bylaws. We'll continue to write grants to help supplement our projects and want to concentrate more on getting the word out on all that the DDA accomplishes throughout the year. All right, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clem. Public comment. Members of the public may address council once recognized by the chairperson. Comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes for items not on the agenda. Council may extend this time by up to an additional 4 minutes by a majority vote. For items on the agenda, comments may be made after council discussion prior to council vote. Prior to addressing council, members of the public will please state their name and address for the record. Is there anyone for public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Shannon Cole. I live at 731 East Sherman Street. I am a member of our Parks Commission. So today I wanted to come and speak to you a bit about Ganshaw Park. I first planned to come up here and kind of talk about maybe a rebuttal from 400 comments on Facebook or a DDA meeting that was held yesterday. Instead, I don't feel that that is going to be at all constructive. What I can say is that clearly the Parks Commission, the DDA, the people were not on the same page. I reviewed my notes. I reviewed the minutes from our meetings that started in August 2023. They went all the way through January of 24. They dropped off for February. I do apologize for that. Certainly an oversight I did not realize. But by April, we made a walkthrough of Ganshaw Park. The entire Parks Commission was there. We walked through. We saw that all the trees had red X's. That was beyond the scope of what we, or at least myself, because I'm not going to speak for everybody, thought that project was going to be. Going back through the minutes, I noticed that we, in our minutes, talk about 7 trees. Consumers was going to have a few, and the DDA wanted to take down 4 at the tree line. That was reiterated through a couple months' worth of meetings. They were public record. Absolutely were people welcome to come and give input, but it was definitely different. Once I saw those red X's, I myself did reach out to Director Klemp, and we kind of had just one little message because I was under the impression that a meeting was trying to take place with our co-chair and the director. I was hoping that they would be able to speak in good faith. I thought this is for sure going to work out. Clearly, we're not on the same page. As we fast forward, the trees have been cut down. It didn't work out, and now what? We're in a place where we have to come up with a new plan. Because we cut down so many trees, are we looking to replace the trees and the same stuff? This is things that are going to have to go on our agenda for the Parks Commission. We don't have answers, and we haven't talked about it. I did want to come just as a public comment because it's such a hot topic, at least on our Facebook pages. My neighbors have said stuff to me that we, in fact, as a Parks Commission, have spent over the last year garnering public input as far as like surveys and different things of what our people want to see in this village. We also are made up of entirely volunteers. We're not paid for our time. We do this totally just because we love our area. In that survey, we had a couple hundred people respond, and the majority of them wanted green space, places to observe nature, walking paths, but most importantly, they wanted us to maintain what we already had. They don't want us just adding willy-nilly into things. They want us to maintain what we have. That's great. That falls in line with what the Parks Commission and our master plan is. We want to continue to beautify Holly, but we also want to be good stewards of nature. So going forward, yes, we're going to add that to our agenda. We're going to figure out where we go from here. Clearly, Ganshaw Park was not where we thought it was going to be. I myself will take responsibility in not noticing that we dropped that off of the agenda in February. I do think that we did some due diligence. I know myself reached out to the director, and the co-chair, McKinney, also tried to get some more information on this project. So hopefully we can make that park look a little bit better. We can get our trees in order. Hopefully they're also non-invasive trees, and we can be back in business on that. But thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. Is there anyone else for public comment? Ms. Mattson?
Anna Mattson, 15091 Western Valley. I'm basically going to say what I said yesterday at the DDA. I think what happened at Ganshaw Park was everyone's fault. I think it's your fault as a council. I think it's the Parks Board's fault. I think it's the DDA's fault, and I think it's staff's fault. But that's not really productive to keep pointing fingers, and that's what everyone keeps trying to do. So from here, we need to look at what happened so we can prevent it from happening again. The Parks Board, by the ordinance, is supposed to create a tree plan, and that tree plan is supposed to be given to the forester, which is Brian Clausen. And he is the forester. He's supposed to preserve our trees, is his primary job. He's supposed to take down trees that are a danger, but he's supposed to preserve our trees above all. The DDA, I think, overstepped. While the park is in their district, according to our ordinances and our charter, Parks is very clearly in charge of parks. And their master plan that was approved here by council doesn't have anything in it about removing trees from Ganshaw Park. This board is at fault because you guys are the oversight of the village. Ms. Kyer, you do a great job on reporting what's going on in parks. I went through the past year and a half of minutes, and Ms. Kyer does a great job on reporting on what's happening with the parks. And there was no vote at Parks for the trees to come down. I want to make that clear, because some people are speculating that there was a vote. There was not a vote. In fact, they were asked, should we vote on this? And they said, no, this will come back to us in the spring, and it never went back to them. The DDA, I was in talks with Nick Clem. He says that this was voted on in May. I disagree. If you look at the minutes, there clearly was no vote in May. There was an informational packet about the different projects that they're doing with committees, but there was no official vote. So everyone dropped the ball with this, and now we're left with what? How do we come back from this? Our trees are gone, and we are supposed to be preserving our green space, and I would like someone to point me to an example on how we've done that since I've lived here for 4 years. I just don't see it. So everyone was at fault. Mr. Delaney is supposed to report to this board on what's going on with the DDA. In the past 14 months, he has not said a word. If you look under the committee reports, he has not once reported on the DDA in the last 14 months. So if this was actually a planned project for the DDA, that should be reported here, and all of you should know about it. You guys should all be reporting on your boards. So this should not have been a secret. Everyone in the community should have known what was happening. Real quick, I never thought that this was going to be on my 24 bingo card, but I'm going to compliment Jerry Walker for putting it in his notes that we should have a town hall about cityhood. I don't know how that wasn't common sense in the first place, that we should actually get public input before we do anything. Instead, we went to the press and said, Holly would love to do this, and it's going to save us money. So I want to thank you, Mr. Walker, for suggesting that. That is just common sense, and the people should always have their voices heard. Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, hearing none, and there being no old business, item number 1 under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to participate in SISMA through Oakland County Parks.
Yes,
Mr. Walker.
thank you, Mr. President and Council. At the June Parks Commission meeting, a presentation was made by Ms. Amy Hellman and representatives from Oakland County Parks regarding the SISMA program. And rather than me butcher what they actually do, I'll just let Amy explain that to you. At the end of the Parks meeting, they voted to recommend to council that you hear this presentation and that we join SISMA. And Amy will explain the benefits to you of that, and then at the conclusion of their presentation, it will be your choice whether to join or not.
So unfortunately, our coordinator for the SISMA has been diagnosed with COVID, so he was unable to come today and bring his presentation. However, I think that Keegan and I will do a good job. So this is our 3rd time around. I started this with the parks for Holly Township. We've been to your village parks, and now I'm here to talk to you. So in 2017, 2018, as my position as the assistant to the supervisor for Holly Township, I became the voting member for the Oakland County SISMA. That is the Cooperative for Invasive Species Management Area. So in that time, we were a nonprofit, grant-funded organization only, primarily treating roadside Phragmites through a grant from the Road Commission, because Phragmites spread mostly through machine mowing on the roadsides. That's why you see all those tall, fluffy, feathery plumes that are taking out all of our cattails. From there, in 2020, we had all that time to sit at home and think stuff up. So we were able to appeal to the Oakland County Parks Commission and then the Board of Commissioners to bring us under the umbrella of Oakland County Parks, which actually allowed us not only to continue to seek out grant funding, but to have access to millage funding. So while I'm asking you to take part in the SISMA and to join up with Oakland County Parks, you already are. Based on the fact that the residents and our taxpayers have been paying taxes to Oakland County Parks for some time now, and you have been reaping the benefits of that for at least the last 2 to 4 years. So what we are proposing, and what actually I'm doing here, is just facilitating a relationship between yourself or your board, your Parks Commission, your Parks Board, and Oakland County Parks, and what all the resources that they have. So your taxpayers are already paying the millage in their tax bill each year, or bi-yearly. And we have a wealth of resources available. When I nominated Sorensen Park, I had nominated them for a grant that was through the SISMA for specific, there was specific tenants to each grant. We're going to do riparian planting, we're going to do signage, we're going to do controlled burns. So I nominated Sorensen Park, the Farmstead on North Holly Road, and the Fish Lake Landing. One for mapping, which is available, so we can take the inventory of the township, and actually that's something that we do for Phragmites and have done for Phragmites for the last 6 years. That way we know exactly what we're treating, where we're growing, and where we're having success. I am happy to say that I'm one of the people that sits around and thinks up ideas on how to spend our tax dollars and how to bring them back to our community. So really, that's the relationship that I'm trying to facilitate here today, is for you to help us bring back our tax dollars to the community. Now, I couldn't have had a better intro into one of the discussions that we had with the Village Parks Commission was all of the different resources that Oakland County Parks has, and actually Keegan will be able to speak more on that. But one of the things that we specifically talked about was the shoreline and the trees along the shoreline in Ganshaw Park. So not only can they do the inventory, can they do the mapping, but they can actually do maintenance planning, they can do riparian planting, and then help you find all the grant monies and things like that for that. However, those resources are available to you free of charge because you're already paying, and then you'll be able to take that expertise and all of that knowledge and all of those resources and put it into your master planning and to some of those little programs that you're wanting to do. So as my part here, I'm really just introducing everyone. So I introduced the parks to Holly Township Parks, I have introduced the Oakland County Parks to the Village Parks, and now I'm going to introduce them to you. So Keegan is actually a naturalist for the Natural Resources Department of Oakland County Parks.
Hello,
Wide-eyed.
I'm Keegan Schilberg. I'm the Natural Areas Coordinator for Oakland County Parks and Rec. So I'm in the parks, I'm doing restoration work, I am managing the parks ecology, and since we've joined with SISMA, I've been giving out expertise to CVTs as requested. Questions are good. I'm a sleep-deprived dad, so like if I ramble, just jump in with questions. So our primary function is to assist, to inventory and maintain. So if you guys have a desire to start stewarding your parks for their ecology, that is stuff we can offer you. We can give you that kind of expertise. Oh, yeah, sure. So Oxford Township Parks has had us come out and look at some of their parks. And we've been performing a rapid assessment and saying, hey, this part of the park has X invasive species. Here's how we can get rid of it. Here's an estimated cost. Do with that what you will, right? So, and then other projects, like we have the grant that Amy was talking about. So like we just did a rain swale catch installation for Kego Harbor, where they had a cruddy little rain catch that was just sort of random junk that we cleaned out for them, planted it with native plants, and now they've got like a functional little rain garden that's good for pollinators. It looks pretty, it's got flowers, it's not just random junk. And so that's the kind of stuff we can assist with. We did a prescribed burn at Sorensen. That's primarily to help promote the native ecology of the park. We do, in the winter, we've been doing forestry mowing, which sounds terrifying, but you get these big monocultures of non-native shrubs. People are in their park, out in the parks, and they're like, man, this trail stinks. I can't see anything. What's with that? We'll come in and clear it out, and then over time maintain it open, like is more of a natural state. I'm scattershot here. I don't know. You guys have questions?
Any questions from council?
Yeah, when you go through a park, you go through it and you map it out, and then you come to the Parks Commission and make recommendations.
Well, in my real job, I'm not SISMA job, right? I predominantly work on the county parks. So I go through our parks like Rose Oaks or Highland Oaks or whatever, and I look at the natural area and I'm like, all right, what's going on here? There's a ton of stuff that's bad for the local ecology. I need to get rid of it. So we have we have a mapping software, and I'm on my little pad, typing in what's bad, how do I get rid of, do I have our staff do it, do I have contractors do it, how do we do it? That kind of thing. For Oxford, and they're really the first ones who have requested this, I've done the same thing. I've gone out to their parks, I've delineated their, here's their wetland, here's their upland, what's bad, what do they need to do, and then I'm working up like a brief, this will cost you roughly X dollars to do this the right way, and then I'm going to give them a report here at the end of the year. So that is something you guys could request if you're like, I don't know what any of this is. Just give me the bullet points here.
Right.
We can do that for you. Come out and look and say, okay, you've got Oriental bittersweet and Japanese knotweed, and you need to get rid of them. Here's the options for getting rid of them. It will cost something like this much money. Here's what your 5-year plan is. Like treat, pull, mow, burn, or whatever. Seed with native plants. With enough practice, you can kind of tell. All right, there's something here. So if we remove the bad stuff, the native stuff will come back. Or there's nothing here. We need to add native seed in, or whatever. We need to plant hazelnut or whatever, right? So that's the kind of services we can offer, and like Amy said, you're already paying for it. You might as well use us.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I have a question.
Oh,
So you have experts to evaluate our needs, you make recommendations, you have grant finders. Did I hear that or no?
so there's kind of a bunch of weird bifurcation that has happened between the county absorbing SISMA. The SISMA has always had getting grants from the state, right? But then when we absorb them, the county has money as a county grant, right? So there's we can get money from the state, but we have money we dole out to CVTs. So they apply, Sorensen, Amy, or
Yep.
yeah, I don't take Patrick, my sick compatriot, is the one who takes in the grant stuff. I'm more the like evaluator guy in the ground, but
The hands-on guy with all the Band-Aids.
yeah, planting project that, yeah. So we have our own money, like Amy applied for Sorensen and wanting a grant. So we looked at it and said, okay, yeah, a burn will work here. We'll achieve some of the goals for the habitat management. And that's like something we do too, because we're trying to be effective with the county money. You guys could apply for a grant and say like, we just want to do something good. Please tell us what to do. And we'll come out and say, okay, we can give you like 10 grand to do a native plant bed. Or, you know, a burn would work really good for what you're trying to, what you could achieve at this park, right? Like, it's not like a grant where like the state would be like, we want super specifics and like you gotta, you know, we're kind of like,
We've got this money.
we're here to help. Like what, we can help you figure out what to do with it. Does that make sense? So it's a grant, but it's more like loosey-goosey than a,
I don't see any negatives. Is there any reason that is there any downsides to us taking advantage of this?
no, you should absolutely take advantage of it.
Okay, thank you.
You're-
I want to make sure, because I don't think Amy said it either.
It's
like-
rough on me because it's more of my time. I've got to run around, but you guys should, you know.
Like being a part of SISMA, it's not like we can either be a part of it or not be a part of it. It's not like we're locked in, like, okay, we signed this contract and now we got to stay in this for 5 years.
Yeah, it's,
It's
You're a part of
loosey-goosey in
it.
your
yes.
words,
It's a
right?
I mean, it's a on our end, it's a service. You know, if you guys are like, we don't like this service, well, all right, don't use us. It's okay. But you are, you know, you guys are paying for it, you might as well use it. There's no cost.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, both of you, to our presenters.
Right, so it's my understanding that the Parks is asking for the council's approval to the recommendation.
Yes.
This is I'm on a learning curve as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is the pleasure of council?
I'd like to make a motion to approve council action request to participate in SISMA through Oakland County Parks.
Motion by Brandon, support by Musgrave, to approve the council action request to participate in SISMA through Oakland County Parks. Was there any further council discussion desired on that item? Great program. Is there any,
Thank you from the Parks Board, thank you.
is there any public comment desired on this item? Yes, Mr. Hutchins.
Joe Hutchins, Holly Village Parks Chair. I contacted Amy because we're down to where we have shoreline on Lakeside Park all the way to the boat livery. We have invasives in there. We probably maybe have some natural stuff in there. People have approached me saying, why don't you guys get rid of this? I said, we don't have the expertise to get rid of this. And we also have waterfront on Ganshaw Park and over on Waterworks Park. You saw what we did last spring with a lot of volunteers to Waterworks. And it was pretty straightforward. It took us 3 years to get that done. We're not quite done. That's why I contacted Amy, because I'm on Holly Township Parks. They did a wonderful job for us out there. Didn't cost us nothing. Because we already, like Amy said, we paid for it. So at this point, people have approached me and said, what are you going to do with all this junk along this lake shore? I said, we'll take care of it once we get the expertise. They tell us, get rid of that, keep that, and get the naturals going back again. So I think that we're on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else for public comment on this item? Hearing none, seeing none, we have a motion in support. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 2 under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to purchase the primary tank equipment. Mr. Walker.
Actually,
Or
Director
Mr. Clausen, excuse me.
Good evening, council. This is similar to the project that was approved last year and we talked about in this year's budget session. This is the second primary clarifier. It's the same company providing this, it's the same equipment as last year and the same installer. Prices did increase a little bit due to inflation, and the contractor learned a little bit from our tank. So the first tank he did, so there'll be some modifications for the second one. But everything's spelled out in there. Currently, that clarifier is out of service because the equipment isn't safe to run with the chance of failure. So we don't have any redundancy right now. But so with your approval, we'll get the equipment ordered, and we're looking at an early fall installation.
Is there a time frame on this, Brian?
The equipment will be ordered, and I think they said 90 days for the equipment to come in, and then we've already talked to the contractor to get us penciled in, and if it's approved tonight, then we'll be on, like I said, early fall installation.
We'll get it done before winter.
Yes.
We know it needs it.
What is the, yeah.
Motion then to approve the purchase of equipment from Hamlet Environmental to replace the aged and non-operational skimming system at a cost of $99,200.
Second.
Motion by Kinnaman, support by Kyer, to approve the council action request to purchase primary tank equipment. Is there any further council discussion desired?
It's infrastructure, gotta have it.
Is there any public comment desired on that item? Seeing none, hearing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
And then item number 3 under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to install primary tank equipment. Mr. Clausen.
Yes, this is Platinum Mechanical gave us a bid. They were the low bidder last time, and they are the low bidder again this time. And the only increase was, like I said, there was a few different changes they have to do, modifications that they found with the first clarifier that they did, so that was a slight increase in it. So,
What is the pleasure of council?
I'll make the motion that we approve the quote for installation of the primary tank equipment by Platinum Mechanical, not to exceed $68,928.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Musgrave, support by Brandon to approve council action request to install primary tank equipment. Is there any further council discussion desired? Is there any public comment desired on that item? We have a motion and support. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries.
thank you, council. And if anybody wants a tour of the plant, the doors are always open. So, thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Item number 4.
Once it's up and running.
Item number 4 under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to finance new police cars.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and Council. You have before you my council action request regarding this. During the 2024-25 fiscal year budget hearings and then ultimate approval was gained for the purchase of 3 police cars. These are not addition to the fleet, but they are replacements of the fleet. And so some of the cars, as they become aged, they just simply are not serviceable, and particularly the Chiefs, if you've ever ridden in that car. So the total price for the purchase and the equipping of the cars is $263,908.08. Now, for over the past 15 years, the village has traditionally financed the purchase of police cars when they buy multiple cars, just so as not to take large amounts out of the fund balance. And so that is the same proposal that we have tonight. The difference is tonight, I have listed two options for you. So the first option would be for traditional financing through the state bank. Originally, the state bank had quoted an interest rate of 6.7% for the installment loan to be paid back over 4 years. Just today, they delivered an updated quote to me with an interest rate of 5.45%. And so they sharpened their pencil a little bit and gave that to us. The second option that you have is really not something new that we've done in the village, but it's something new for the purchase of police cars. So in 2016, the village purchased a new ambulance, and they financed that ambulance by taking a loan from the water and sewer funds and then paying that loan back to the water and sewer funds, including the applicable interest. And so I included that backup for you in your packet just so that you would have it, so you could see how it worked with that purchase. And so that is the same option that you have today, is you could borrow the money from the water and sewer fund and then pay it back. What I would propose if you did that was that you borrowed the money from the water and sewer fund and then paid it back at an interest rate of 4%. So 4%, that is higher than what the village is currently capturing on those funds that are on deposit. So it is a savings in, or it's an increase in the return of funds for the water and sewer department in the amount of $22,941. And so really the question is, do you want to borrow the money and pay the interest to state bank, or do you want to borrow the money, pay the interest really back to the citizens of the village in the form of the water and sewer funds and keep all the money in-house? So really the choice is council's. The amount that we proposed for the loan was $225,000. The rest was included in the budget. And so if you should have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer them. I don't think there's a lot of justification needed for the use of cars, but President Pro Tem Brandon and I had a brief discussion before the meeting about, because at first blush, it seems like the police have a lot of cars. The truth is, they don't have a lot of cars. By the time you have a minimum of 2 road patrol officers, plus the chief, plus a code enforcement officer, plus 3 cars that go to the schools every day for school resource officers, because each one of those officers have to have a car. And then you have officers at court, at training, or cars just down for service. There really is a need for all of these cars. If council approves this purchase, however, what will happen is we'll get these new 3 cars outfitted, and then 3 cars will be sold, and that money from those used car sales will be returned to the general fund.
As a point of clarification, how many cars do we have?
8.
And then second question, I guess, what's our water fund balance at currently? We know Debbie has the answers on the money.
I don't have it with me, and I don't like to guess when we're talking numbers. I can get it for you. I know that we do have enough to cover this, obviously, without being in jeopardy of any emergency, because it would be partially from the water, partially from the sewer. So it would only be about $100,000 in each account.
But we don't have like a general amount that we know.
I really hate to guess when it's numbers. I want to say over for
Yeah, so we, I mean, so, yeah, I mean, so we have over 400,000
Yeah,
that is
they're
directly
one idea.
accessible, and then we have an excess of 3 million that is invested
With Oakland
with
County.
Oakland County, and that money is invested and held for long-term emergency type projects.
And if, in the foreseeable future, emergencies arise, is that gonna cut our legs off from underneath us?
No, because we do have access to that money from Oakland County. You know, it's just, we have it tied up now to get the highest yield from it, but if we need it, we can get it. But we feel even with this, because it's only a little over 100,000 from each fund, that we can operate safely within the year without touching that money.
So I had a citizen reach out to me concerned about the need of police cars, which is what prompted the conversation with Mr. Walker and I today. And it was her understanding that we only ever use one police car at a time, which I did not think to be the case at all. And she also asked why we don't sell several. So I just wanted to open that opportunity up for discussion if anyone wants to take that point.
Well, they do sell.
I figured as much, but I'm not going to speak for them.
Well, yeah, so as I said, as we outfit these other cars and they come online, we will then sell 3 of the existing cars that we currently have.
Chief?
Actually, if I may, the plan is to sell 2. And the only reason is we don't have a vehicle, we don't have enough vehicles. So in the last 4 years, I've tried to increase every 3 years when we purchase and replace cars by gaining 1. What we do is we purchase 3 new cars. Those are the cars that are going to run the most, the hardest. They all have to be outfitted with the emergency equipment. A lot of that is state standard. You've got to have the cameras, the CAD MDC system, in-car cameras, computers, and then the relative gear. A lot of that gear is transferable over. Some of it isn't. So those cars are the on-duty fleet use cars. We move the 3 that were in that position down. Those cars become like a sergeant or a command car, and then the school resource officers will take any vehicles. They have 3, which the schools pay us for, by the way. So we do recoup money annually to maintain these cars, and that's helping to offset, through the manager and myself, in negotiations. We didn't have that before. We're actually capturing, trying to think of the annual capture, but it's sufficient that over a 3-year period it'll pay for this car. And then we have 3 SRO officers, so they're now driving the older cars, the code enforcement officer, and then myself. And I take the oldest of the oldest because it's not out getting beat driving, in high speed, in pursuit mode. So even if we buy the 3, sell the 2, we're down to selling 2016s. That's the years. And these cars, keep in mind, have been running day after day after day since 2016, and we're putting a lot in maintenance of these cars. So I've done this for many, many years with the 3, move them down the responsibilities. The tired cars work less. The newer cars, while they're under maintenance, do the heavy lifting. And it works out really, really well. But with the additional car, we'll now have a car for our code enforcement. Because what we can't do is have a police officer walk to a call. And it just isn't very effective. You put them on a horse, or but you almost have to. We've now negotiated additional funds annually from the schools for the 3 SRO vehicles that they use, and we now have code enforcement. We took that on about a year ago, so that's now a police department function. And the cool thing about that is you have a police car and a code enforcement officer who is a sworn officer in the department out driving through your neighborhoods looking for code violations, but I defy someone who is planning a crime in that community to look over and know if that's a code enforcement officer or a police officer. So we're doubling or increasing our patrols throughout those neighborhoods at a much reduced rate because it's code enforcement activity. But They are in uniform, they are sworn to perform other functions in their eyes and ears as well. So it's a really effective, efficient way to have extra patrol.
And Chief Narsh, how many school resource officers are working at one time?
3.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have 1 dedicated specifically at the high school. And again, we've picked up 2, and the school pays for those. So the most recent acquisition is an officer that is dedicated to the 4 elementary schools, and the schools pay, like, I think 85% of that. The only thing we pay for is the time during the summer, like right now, where he's back on midnights and filled a midnight position that we had vacant, and we were paying overtime to fill that. So in a way, we got a favor out of that. So the schools pay 85% of that officer's salary. And we have 1 dedicated high school, 1 dedicated middle school, and 1 for all 4 elementary.
Thank you. These are some of the things that the public doesn't see, so I appreciate you allowing that to be recorded on video.
Absolutely,
So they can understand
absolutely.
the need.
And anybody can call me at any time or stop in if they have any concerns or questions about, and just questions about how the SRO program works, how the vehicle fleet works. These vehicles get tired and beat up, and they're hard to. At any given time, we have at least 1 down, which makes me modify somebody's schedule. Because with that, even with selling the 2 and keeping the 1, that now, because we just picked up last year another SRO, that gives me now him a car. That officer was taking a car that was designated for either command staff or the code enforcement. So I have to modify code enforcement schedule if I'm lacking cars. So this, and again, what we're keeping is a 2016 car, so we wouldn't get a lot for it, but we'll get a lot of use out of it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other
Just
questions?
one final
Yes, ma'am.
question. In regards to the SRO, have we ever thought about, I know that they cover 85% of the officer, have we ever thought about going to the schools to see if they would cover anything in regards to the vehicles? Because clearly that's something that's needed for the job, right?
Yeah, and we did. We attempted negotiation. Now, the schools have been very generous. We have, I'm going to argue that Mr. Walker's a pretty good debater there. We've got a better, I think, SRO percentage of school payment than other SROs throughout Oakland County that I've seen. So I'm not trying to say it too loud, but they're doing a really fantastic job in supporting the police department, supporting the fact that we need school resource officers. So they're paying that. We attempted to negotiate for the full price of a brand-new car, but there was additional safety equipment that they put throughout the schools that was way more than a car cost that was also requested by the police department. So they've been meeting almost every request we've had, and on this one, they doubled, instead of purchasing a new vehicle, they doubled the amount of the day. I charge them daily, so for every day that an officer is one of those cars, they're going to pay X. And they doubled that for us, which is helping to offset. Well, it will certainly cover the cost of the additional car we're simply not going to sell. It's way more value than if we sold it. We tried. Happy.
Have you ever considered having a chip unit or motorcycles, or is that not feasible?
We used to.
For the summertime?
Yeah, that would be an additional cost, additional expense, additional training, and even though I ride a bike, I'd come out and say that I don't think it's a value for us at this time. It's more public relations. If you arrest somebody, you got a choice. They can hug you or let them drive. But, it's not, I'm kind of opposed to either if I just arrested them. Unless I handcuff them in the front, and then they can't get away from me. But it's more public relations, and they have some function, and they're definitely cool, but I won't come to you with cool. I'm only going to come to you with needs, and I'm really trying to establish all the needs that we have right now.
I was just looking at it from the standpoint of financial.
Yeah.
Motorcycles are less expensive, unless it's a Harley, of course, than vehicles, so.
Yeah.
Art could ride one doing code enforcement, though, can't you picture?
Oh, I can, but that's,
Art, driving a Harley? Yeah.
yeah. Just something to low to the ground,
Joe Pesci
please.
pulling up on a bike.
Something low to the ground.
Well, with that in mind,
We'll leave you with
that
that.
visual in mind.
You should all be ashamed of yourselves.
I'll make the motion.
All right, well, motion to,
I'll make the motion that, from the staff's recommendation for option 2, to borrow $225,000 from, and I'm going to say water and sewer fund.
Yes.
Instead of just water, so that we're sure that it's coming from both, and to be repaid at 4% interest over 4 years.
I'll second.
motion by Kinnaman, support by Perkins, to authorize the borrowing of $225,000 from the water and sewer funds, the loan to be repaid at 4% interest over a 4-year period of time. Was there any further council discussion desired on that item? Is there any public comment desired on this item? Hearing none, seeing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Definitely.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Reports, Mr. Walker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and Council. So last week we had our annual 4th of July celebration, of course, and it was another fantastic show. The show was very good. Ace Pyro has done a very good job every year for us. I want to thank Councilperson Kyer and Kinnaman for their help at the gate and helping to fundraise and park cars. And I know that a lot of people are away on the 4th, but I know that without volunteers like that, volunteers are hard to come by. It's hard to get that job done. Now, Ace Pyro, we are in the last year of our contract with them, and they were hesitant to enter into a new contract until later in the year, which leads me to believe two things. One, that the price of fireworks are going to go up drastically, and they kind of hinted in that direction. And the other is that the 4th of July next year will be on a weekend. And so we have what is considered a smaller show, even though for us it's pretty large, but in the industry, a smaller show. And so they've indicated that they want us to move off the 4th. And so that'll be a consideration of parks. And so that will be on one of their future agendas, just so you know. And they'll be looking to either do it on either the 3rd or the 5th or a different weekend. And so that's something to come. The other part of my report is contained in my written report to you. In the May council meeting, council discussed the question of cityhood and the process and the cost. And so what I did was I met with representatives from the Michigan Municipal League and also had discussions with representatives from the city of Manchester. The city of Manchester is the latest new city in the state of Michigan, in that in 2023 they, in their general election, went from a village and voted and became a city. And so just to get some information from them as far as process, as far as costs, and different information like that. And then additionally, Clerk Treasurer Bigger and I met with Plant Moran to talk with them about their consulting arm of their firm to see about getting some expertise and leadership in this area of studying and actually implementing a cityhood initiative. And certainly that is something that Plant Moran does. And the cost just for their service is about $10,000. That is a standard cost. It can be more, depending on if they're asked to do more, but their standard cost estimate to be at $10,000. Additionally, the village would be required during that process to have the village boundaries surveyed by a survey company that kind of specializes in this area. So altogether, between professional services of Plant Moran, the surveyor, the attorneys, and any other accounting costs that had to be done out of house, their estimate was that it would be $25,000 to $35,000 in order to get this initiative ready for the ballot. Now, there's no action required at this time unless council wishes to move forward with this process at this time. So certainly you don't have to do anything now. You don't have to do anything ever with it if you don't want to. But if you do want to, this is a starting point for you. As Ms. Mattson referenced, one of the other discussions that I had with the MML and the City of Manchester was the feasibility, before you do anything at all, of holding town hall meetings to get input from the public. And so, really, if I were to give a recommendation at this time, I would say don't take action on whether to kill the initiative or not. Leave it as it is. It doesn't matter. You're not doing anything with it. And then decide at some point down the road, it can be after the next election, it can be after more meetings of the study committee, of whether or not you want to conduct said town hall meetings, and then schedule a series of those. And so that would be my recommendation. That's my report, and that would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Mr. Gilder, do you have anything for us?
I don't, it was a short month.
Ms. Bigger, anything to add to your written report?
I just want to remind everybody that we have a special council meeting next Tuesday, July 16th at 6 o'clock p.m. And also we will be having a personnel committee meeting on Tuesday, July 30th at 6 p.m.
What was on July 30th, please?
Personnel committee meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Boards and commission updates and council comments. Ms. Kyer.
The parks, we originally were scheduled to meet on the 3rd. That was rescheduled to tomorrow, but then that was canceled due to lack of agenda items or things to discuss because irony is dead. I'm just going to pass along some papers. These are letters from our parks commissioners and also pictures of the trees that are in Ganshaw Park, or were, as it were. As a parks liaison, I would like to clarify some things in regard to Ganshaw Park. I watched the DDA meeting last night and was disheartened to watch as staff question the character and integrity of one of our own. I thought this was a mistake, a clear miscommunication. I believe fully that Mr. Klemp thought what he was doing was the right thing. Unfortunately, it does not align with the majority of our Parks Commission's memory or the written record. At the original meeting in August when this project was first proposed, which is videotaped and I encourage all to watch, we were presented with ideas to replace the trees along the road to create cohesiveness between downtown and midtown. We were also presented with replacing garbage cans, benches, and potentially upgrades to the gazebo. Along with that discussion, there was mention of cottonwood trees that were scheduled to be trimmed by consumers. If they were trimmed too far back, it would make sense to remove them so as not to pose a danger. This is important because this was the original plan that was presented to us, that consumers would be doing the tree trimming, and that grant funds could possibly be used to replace those trees which might have to be removed along with the trees along the road. I've included pictures for this council to see where some trees that were removed were not even close to power lines. In our September and October meetings, we discussed the trees that we might want to replace with the downed cottonwoods. Again, for clarification, we thought these were the only trees that were coming down were those in the wires. And we waited on updates from our staff liaison on when consumers might be trimming the trees. In January, Director Clausen informed us that Mr. Klemp had received the grant to replace the trees and DPW would start the project in the spring. Again, we were all under the assumption that this meant the trees along the roads and the ones cut back by consumers. Our annual Parks Walk-Around was scheduled on April 7th after our regular scheduled meeting on the 3rd. At that walk-around, the commissioners were shocked at the large amount of trees that were marked for removal. To be clear, all commissioners, save our chair, were horrified by the sheer amount of trees that were slated for removal. The consensus was that our vice chair, Sarah, would approach Mr. Klemp as they are friendly to get clarification. We made this decision as well because our chair does not use email. She indeed reached out to him but felt she was pushed off, as evidenced in her emails to us earlier this week. And Ms. Cole and I agreed to email Mr. Klemp on our own to express our surprise. Unfortunately, I was on vacation after our walk around and my email got stuck in drafts because that's my life. I will regret that for a long time. However, Ms. Cole's email did go through where she also expressed shock at the number of trees slated for removal. And in his reply back, Mr. Klemp stated a few trees would come down in the middle of the park, and that was in April. When I tell my daughter she can have a few cookies, this does not equate to 15 cookies. Mr. Summers had also expressed a reticence to remove trees back in August. That is 3 members of our board, and had our email gone through, it would have been a quorum. To say, as you did last night in your meeting, that our chair was somehow unaware of our displeasure is a blatant falsehood. He was there at the walk-around. He heard many of our concerns. It is my sincere apology to all of you that got pulled into this that I did not bring this up in a council meeting or push for it to be addressed at the Parks Board in May. I take full ownership of that. I thought it could be resolved without the public rancor that has permeated these chambers regarding trees in the last months. Clearly, I was wrong. I have reached out privately to staff in the past and have gotten results. Just last week, as I took my daughter to a local park, I noticed our local artist had drawn a large male appendage on the floor of the gazebo. I reached out via email to both Mr. Walker and Mr. Clausen to see if we could get this resolved. There was no hand-wringing then that I was speaking on behalf of our board without approval. There were no meetings that had to be discussed. I didn't need 3 other commissioners to back me up. It was something that could be and should be handled as it was. The audacity to say that we are somehow negligent in our duties to research this project is in direct conflict with how it relates to this proposed Veterans Memorial. That project first came before Parks before it came here. I took it upon myself and was very clear that I spoke only for myself when I raised concerns about the project. My voice and mine alone was able to change the scope of this project. All of this is to say the scope of the project that was presented changed drastically from August to April without our knowledge. How could we possibly have agreed to all the trees coming down in the fall when they weren't marked until April? How could Parks approve this when DDA only voted on it in May of this year? When members of our board reached out for clarification, they were ignored or pushed off until it was too late. And it's become a game of passing blame when all of us ought to take accountability for our missteps and look for a way forward to ensure that this never happens again. To piggyback on the letter in front of you from Mr. Summers, what happened is in direct conflict with both our master plan and our recent survey. Not too long ago, Parks approved plans to create a conservation easement along the Shiawassee for a possible future site of a walking path. Tonight, we have brought you plans to join SISMA to facilitate help on the county level with things such as invasive species and restoring and protecting our natural resources. That is who we are as a board. We are dedicated stewards to this community who seek to protect our most valued resources. One of our own commissioners, Reza Hamilton, has been working on grants for months for trees. It's antithetical to what we sought to accomplish. Since her name was brought up last night, I'd like to clarify a couple statements about Ms. McCanny. Sarah is not merely a commissioner, although that should be enough. She is our former chair and our current vice chair. For a decade, she has dedicated herself to this community. Every hot dog you eat at Holly Days and every donut you eat at Halloween is due to her efforts. She has no agenda but to make this town beautiful and to be a good steward to our community. She is not perfect, as none of us are, but she does not and did not deserve the vitriol that was spewed at her last night. Much was made about how she had originally taken accountability and ownership of the project because that's what leaders do. It was only after watching every meeting and going over minutes when there was no videotape meeting that she realized she didn't falter, that we were all in agreement, as evidenced by the multiple emails and text exchanges and commissioners who are present today. She was not alone in this. How 2 separate entities can have such different recollections is troubling. Lastly, for what it's worth, and again, this is my personal stance, but I value transparency over somebody's hurt feelings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kyer. Mr. Kennedy.
apologize for being late. I was picking up my son from the Detroit airport, and timing wasn't the best. We had no planning commission meeting in the last month, and just a couple of things coming up chamber-wise. Our annual golf outing is this Friday, and sidewalk sales are the 26th, 27th, and 28th of this month. And the Saturday, if you recall, we approved allowing us to close the street and do something a little more significant with the Saturday of that event. And then Blues Brews and Barbecue will be on the 3rd, and we are looking at changing up the food a little bit. Thank you.
Still barbecue?
Still barbecue. But we're working on some additional places to, some of our local chamber member restaurants to be involved in that a little bit, so.
Very good. Thank you very much. President Pro Tem Brandon.
Thank you. I have some questions about the parks issues as well. And Amber, Councilwoman Kyer addressed most of them, I think, but I don't know when or if we'll get answers or who it's appropriate to ask. I'm a little confused about the hierarchy at this point. There's also been a lot of conspiracy theories and allegations on Facebook, so some of these questions are to refer to those as well, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the staff to address them just to clear the air. There have been allegations surrounding the company that was hired, so I'd like to know, and I think the public would as well, who was hired to cut down the trees, how many companies bid on the job, were bids solicited, who evaluated the trees' health, who gave the order to cut down 15 or 18 trees instead of the 4 that were supposed to be replaced with 6. Where did they get permission to give that order? Which meeting shows us the minutes with this proposal and which board passed it? Now, moving on, the Sisters City International Committee has been working on connecting with other cities. The organization itself finally just sent us our intro email and has scheduled our intro phone call later this week. They used to send delegates to present them and give us a presentation, but this is the process now, which has been kind of disappointing. And we're disappointed with how long all of this has been taking. I made 4 phone calls and 7 emails in the last few months that all went unanswered until just now. So I wonder if, like Holly, they're low on volunteers as well. So far, this has been very tedious with very little reward. We are finally on the roster with a description of all that Holly has to offer, and we're highlighted as a city seeking a sister city for cultural exchange, though. Progress has been made. I'm not yet certain if I'll recommend staying a member next year or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Perkins.
HTC has not met, and I hope everybody has a wonderful summer.
Ms. Musgrave.
Nothing to comment on.
Mr. Harrington.
HIA meets on the 3rd Monday of the month, and I gave my report at the end of the late June meeting, so I have nothing to report. My meeting will happen the 3rd Monday of this month. And everybody have a good summer.
The DDA board met last evening. I don't think there's anything that I could possibly share at this point that has not been already shared about that meeting. I would like to thank in particular everyone on council, everyone on staff, and certainly everyone who serves on our Village Parks Commission. I know we have a few members present this evening. Thank you very much for your service. Just a couple of points I would like to make about that, and I don't want to belabor either of them, but I would like to remind staff that decision-making lies ultimately with this council and the boards and commissions that we appoint, right? And so as we proceed with projects, and I trust that everything is done in good faith, but we want to be very cautious that we are sticking to the script, for lack of a better phrase. And then also, this goes for everyone regarding any kind of public commentary, but especially on social media. Certainly, none of us lost our First Amendment right to freedom of expression when we were elected or appointed to office. But we should be very cautious about speaking. If we're a member of an elected or appointed body, we should be very cautious about not speaking for that body or appearing to speak for that body. And when we're cautious about that, I'm very confident that the public will understand the difference between when we're speaking as individuals and when we're speaking for the body. So again, I don't want to belabor either of those points, but I do very much want to say thank you, everyone, for your service to the village. I just want to remind everyone again, we have a special council meeting on Tuesday, July 16th, and then that personnel committee meeting on Tuesday, July 30th. Is there anything else from either council or staff?
Reminder that I will be on vacation for that special council meeting.
Oh, very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Kinnaman. All right, if there is nothing else, meeting is adjourned.